And now, moving forward, we again go back to the presentation. One of the most dynamic personalities present here from fund ecosystem in GIFT IFSC. Over here, Sandip Shah, head IFSC department, GIFT City. Everyone, can we have him on stage, Mr. Sandip Shah?
Thank you. I think great discussions, for the panel. And I was told generally, basically, that in financial market discussions, uh, panel discussions generally don't end without the mention of Gift City. And I was happy to see that today that Gift was also a part of one of the discussions that they had. Uh, I can see many known faces, many of the players are already present in Gift City, but generally whenever I meet or interact with the people, they have, so many questions about what we can do in Gift, uh, what is the process, what are the structures that can be created, how to bring money from overseas to Gift, how to bring money from India to Gift, because while it has been designated as the offshore financial center, but still part of India, and that's how it's a mid-shore kind of a jurisdiction where it's not part of India, but still part of India geographically, and there are some regulations which apply, some regulations which do not apply. So let me take this opportunity, and where the fund industry is here today, and we have seen, we saw very great numbers in the first presentation about how the industry is growing. I think it's very amazed to see the funds have grown 11 times in last 5 years. The private equity funding is reaching $70 billion every year. I think it's great to see. Probably I think the where Gift comes into a play, where even young fund managers we have seen, they are now looking to raise money from the foreign investors. And while we may be worried about our Indians going out on in big numbers every year, but they are the one also who are bringing capital or investment back to India, and that's where many young fund managers are also looking to see how they can raise money from the foreign investors or the NRI community. And that's where I think the ecosystem which we are creating at Gift City, and where Government of India has provided a lot of incentives to see how you can structure your offshore fund at Gift, instead of going to the other global financial center and investing back in India. Uh, Let me structure my discussion into three parts mainly. First part, on the Gift City, how the ecosystem is emerging, uh, who are the players already operating, and the second part more from the fund ecosystem perspective. The regulations are fantastic. I'm not sure if you've gone through it, but if you are actually looking to raise money from the foreign investor, this is what we have observed, that this is now becoming the preferred destination for all the Indian fund managers specifically looking to raise money and invest back in India. And the third part mainly on the taxation and the process part, basically in terms of what are the steps involved to set up the fund and the taxation regime that it has. So Gift City, I'm sure many of you have visited. If not, I think you must, because while it's a financial center, it is also the first operational smart city. It's closer to the Ahmedabad International and Domestic Airport, and while international zone is generally in the discussion, but it also has a domestic zone, very well developed domestic zone, and it's an integrated city development project. So it's being developed under 1,000 acres of land with state-of-the-art infrastructure facilities covering, school, the club, hotel, residentials are part of the city. Idea is to provide, walk-to-work concept, so you can uh, stay in Gift City, and your office can be in the same location. That's how we are developing this city. Uh, this is the master plan of the city, and as I mentioned, it includes commercial, residential, social facilities. Close to 20 million square feet of various facilities are coming up in the commercial, residential, and social facility side. It's also located closer to the Sabarmati river. While it's generally dry, but now the government of Gujarat is also creating a kind of a river front, where generally we have seen the financial centers have grown near the water body, and that's how the water body will also be a part of the financial center of the country. More from the international financial services center perspective, I think the broad level idea and objective was to create a structure or a jurisdiction where we can allow international financial services activities without any restriction. So that's the basic objective under which it has been established. You know, as a financial services community very well how it is difficult today in terms of investing overseas or raising money to in India basically from the foreign investors, and that is because our currency is not fully convertible. The IFSC, which has been notified as gift special economic zone, it has been given a status of non-resident. So under the foreign exchange management regulations, when you set up an entity, you will be recognized as non-resident entity. So which means none of the FEMA related regulations will apply when you set up your structure in GIFT. So you can freely raise money from the international investors, you can freely invest in international markets. Today, if I can give you an example, as a portfolio manager in India, if you want to diversify your investment into in the international market, you cannot invest more than 25% of your money, right? While a fund in GIFT City can actually 100% in the international markets. FEMA will be applicable only when you invest from GIFT to India. So when I say a fund invest in India, it will be subject to the FPI norms which generally apply when a Singapore or a Hong Kong fund invests back in India. So that's how it is structured. Well, fund we will discuss more in detail, but the financial center is coming up as an entire ecosystem where banking, insurance, capital market activities, the ancillary service providers. So the entire gambit of financial services are happening from the zone today. In terms of the ecosystem, some numbers to throw. I think 23 banks are already operating, including foreign banks. Around 8 foreign banks are present today. 2 international stock exchanges. They operate 22 hours a day. So if hedge funds want to, hedge their risk basically in the international markets, the exchanges can provide the products where they can trade. There are 20 odd insurance companies, more than 40 funds have been registered. This is something very interesting for all of you. I think numbers are growing every day, and with the latest union budget announcements, it will also make now very easy for actually fund to get registered in GIFT IFSC. I'll also talk a brief about how the union budget announcement is going to helpful to the fund ecosystem. There are capital market intermediaries, ancillary service providers, and some of the new activities have also been enabled in terms of aircraft leasing, ship leasing activities, which were not earlier part of the Indian, financial ecosystem. So for the first time, some of these new activities we are trying to develop, which were earlier happening from the other centers, and we are trying to see how this can be, developed in the Indian ecosystem through the IFSC at GIFT City. Coming now, directly to the fund ecosystem, how it's evolving and how it is, coming up at GIFT City. So generally, we have seen in India, when you want to set up a fund, generally fund is registered with the regulator and not the manager. What the regulations now talk today in GIFT City, where a fund manager entity will be licensed instead of a fund. And based on your license of the fund manager entity, you can actually create different funds and schemes, as per the risk appetite. So I think now focus has been completely changed, and it is now benchmarked with the other leading centers where a risk-based approach has been adopted. And so if you are a venture fund manager, you don't need to be regulated as strict as a retail fund manager, right? So that's how the approach has been, and the regulations have been kind of appreciated by the fund managers who are operating there. Generally, we have seen these kind of structures, in the fund industry where you set up a fund, under a trust structure or LLP, raise money from the foreign investors and invest back in India. So when you are investing back in India, if it is in the public markets, you will have to obtain FPI license, and all the FPI norms will apply when you invest in India. If you are investing in the private markets, then the FDI norms will apply basically. That's how it is structured. The AIF diversification norms will not apply, and the funds in GIFT City, because generally there are questions, do we need to obtain the SEBI license when we set up in GIFT? So you don't need to now obtain license from SEBI, because we have a unified regulator based in GIFT City, which is IFSC authority. So a single regulator will provide the license, and the regulations issued by the IFSC authority will be applicable to you when you set up a fund. You don't need to look at the the existing SEBI AIF regulations, for the GIFT City fund jurisdiction. And that's where the flexibilities have been given, at par with the other leading financial centers. And if I can give you an example, you can take the leverage as much you want. You just need to mention in the placement document, but leverage has been permitted. The diversification norms do not apply. So those are some of the factors which have been considered when preparing the regulations for the IFSC fund regime. If you look at the fund management entity regulation, it is divided into three parts. So if you are a venture fund manager, you need to obtain authorized FME license, and that's where the regulations have been aligned, and you don't need to follow those strict norms generally which apply to the retail fund. And within the authorized FME, you can have the venture fund schemes depending on your investment pattern. If you obtain the non-retail license, basically the registered FME non-retail license, this is similar to like a hedge fund or a public market fund, where this fund manager can also do a venture fund, and it can also do the hedge fund or a public market fund, basically. So that's where the second category of license is provided. The only thing which the second fund cannot do is the retail fund. So apart from a kind of a mutual fund scheme, you can actually do all the fund management activities under the second category. And the third is a retail category, where you can actually create a retail fund, raise the money from foreign investors and invest in India or overseas, basically. Now, another question is, can we raise money from the resident investors in India? So the answer is yes. As a fund manager in GIFT City, you can also raise money from India under the LRS route or the OPI route. However, the money should be invested in the international market. You can't invest back that money in India, basically. So that's how it is. The foreign money raised in GIFT can be invested in both the jurisdictions. You can invest in India as well as you can invest in the international markets. Some details about the capital requirements for the fund manager entity. But if you are setting up as a branch, so if you are a already registered entity in India or overseas, you can also operate as a branch for your fund manager. And that branch can actually maintain the capital at the parent level. So you don't need to bring capital at the branch level at the IFSC. Your parent can maintain basically in your home jurisdiction. Now, while we understand and I'm sure you all understand the fund a business which is a plain vanilla business where you raise money, invest under FDI, FPI routes and all of that. I would take this opportunity to give the couple of new perspectives which you can use and innovate when you are looking to set up fund in GIFT. And there are certain enablers which have been already provided in the new regulations, and I would like to all of you to go through it and apply and see how you can actually create some of these structures in GIFT City when you are looking to set up this fund. One of the categories which have been enabled is the special situation funds. So I think this is important, where the FME, the fund manager, can actually create special situation fund, and this special situation fund can invest into the stressed assets basically in India. This has been given a special category, and the relevant enablers have been provided so that to attract these kind of funds. So this is something which you may like to evaluate. Another one is the ETFs. I think again, asset management companies, some of the AMCs can look at creating the ETFs in GIFT City. ETFs can be of debt, it can be of gold, silver index, it can be of another commodities. This is again very interesting, where the ecosystem of exchanges, ecosystem of clearing corporation, the global custodian, global depository is already present today in GIFT. And this will give you a kind of a market where you can actually attract the lot of NRIs or foreign investors to invest and trade on the ETF markets. And I think this has not been tested by anyone. I think this is something new which some of you can look at, and think of creating ETFs, as well as listing of ETFs can happen on the IFSC exchange platform. Recently, for last 5-6 months, we have been getting a lot of inquiries from the family investment funds as well. So I think this is also becoming a attraction for the many Indian family offices who are looking to invest overseas or diversify their investment overseas. OPI route allows Indian corporates to invest basically in the offshore funds, and where the self-managed fund in GIFT City, which is a family fund, can raise money under the OPI route and can invest back in the international markets. So this is something which is also very interesting, and a family fund can be self-managed fund basically. And it has been permitted to, while it can invest in public markets and the private markets, it has also been permitted to invest in special assets as well. So this is again investment for some of the families who are looking to diversify their investment in the international markets. And the framework also allows the innovations through a sandbox and a fund lab. So if you are creating a strategy where you want to experiment in terms of the investment that you are raising, and you are making it in India, a regulator allows you to do it basically under a regulated market, where you will be given kind of a freedom from the FME regulations, or you will be provided exemptions for the period of 18 months. So some of your new strategies, new innovations can also be looked at to be a part of this fund lab, which has been provided under the regulations, and this can be considered. On the overseas investment norms, we know that a special chapter has been provided by the RBI for the investment to be done from GIFT City to the IFSC, where OPI investment has been permitted. We had seen earlier where if you are a new fund manager or fund manager entity or a financial entity, and if you don't have a 3 years profit record, generally an entity in India was not allowed to make investment in the international market. So you can't set up an entity overseas if you don't have the 3 years profit record, because the ODI norms were not allowing earlier. Now for the first time, a non-financial entity in India, even if it does not have 3 years profit record, can actually set up an entity in GIFT and invest in the international markets. So that is something which can be considered by the new fund managers basically to expand into the international markets. And the overseas investment norms are quite flexible basically in terms of how you can raise money from the Indian investors basically for the investment in the international markets. Taxation, basically, quickly, I think we all know Cat 1, Cat 2, those funds. So what will happen under the income tax when you set up a fund manager entity? You will be still part of the income tax of India. So while under FEMA you are non-resident, but under the income tax you are still resident, which means the existing income tax norms will apply. However, the taxation regime has been made very competitive. So as a fund manager entity, your business income will enjoy 10 years of income tax holiday. So no tax for the period of 10 years. And you have flexibility to select any 10 consecutive years out of 15 years. So that is mainly for the business income of the fund manager. Now coming to the fund, where the investors' money basically, where you raise the money from the investors, and the gain happens through the capital gain. So if it is a category 1 and 2 fund, so this fund manager, when you set up a fund in GIFT, you will be basically categorized under category 1, 2 and 3, because the income tax talks more on the categories. So if it is a category 1 and 2, it will be passed through. And if it is category 3, there is the taxation happens at the fund level. And the taxation regime for the category 3 fund is as good as, with the treaties of Singapore and Mauritius. So as an example, a hedge fund investing on the derivatives market in India, there will not be capital gain tax in India. So likes of FPI investing from Singapore, Mauritius, the same way the treaty will apply, or the taxation regime will apply when you invest from GIFT to India. And the equity will be taxed as per 10% and the 15%. So that's the tax regime, and quite simple. Additionally, your investors in GIFT City, they don't need to obtain PAN in India. They don't need to file income tax return in India. So they will also enjoy the same freedom which generally they enjoy through the other structures. So your foreign investors investing in GIFT fund, they will just invest through a normal KYC process. They will not have to obtain PAN, or they don't need to register with the income tax authority. That's something more of a ease of doing business to provide ease of doing business to the fund players. The ecosystem is already present today. In terms of the service provider, accounting firms and legal firms, and the trustee providers, fund administrators and all. Last slide basically, in terms of the process, it's quite it's while though it's already a simple, but now with the union budget announcement, it will become more simple where as they are planning to create a single form where you don't need to go to the multiple authorities. Single form will interact with the authorities to get the required approvals. But today you need to get two approvals, one from the SEZ authority and second from the IFSC authority. And both the approvals can be obtained in 45 to 60 days of time, and post which you can commence the operation. So this is what how the fund ecosystem at GIFT City is coming up. We'll be happy to discuss, during the day if you have any questions, but I think we are running out of time. We'll discuss off the line. Thank you very much, and it's again my pleasure to be part of here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for giving this amazing one knowledge out here. So now we would like to, just call up on the stage so that we can go ahead and move ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, since the question has been, have been moved out, so we would like to call Miss Uma Shanmukhi Sistla from SBI SG, MD and CEO. Amazing round of applause for them. To felicitate Sandip Shah. And thank you so much, a small token of appreciation from a little family. Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session.